Welcome to the PharmaVOICE 100 one-on-one video series with Karen Groen.
Peter, congratulations on being named to the 2020 PharmaVOICE 100.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the honor.
Well, thank you again, too, for joining us for this one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions, and hopefully we'll have a nice conversation.
Absolutely. Peter, tell me how you're driving your teams to offer patient-minded, value-driven outsourced sales and clinical field forces during this new move to virtual meetings as we all embrace this new virtual reality that we're in.
I'll tell you, it's been a real challenge for us as an organization. As you know, we field people that are used to going into offices and talking to folks in person. So it's really challenged us to look at how we're even recruiting and hiring, how we're training people, how we're coaching them, and all the tools that we're able to give them. So it's been, in spite of all the obstacles that are out there, it's been a real learning environment for us. We've been very pleasantly surprised with how well the representatives have transitioned to this electronic medium and communicating with their healthcare providers and key opinion leaders. We've also found that the KOLs and the HCPs are welcoming this interaction in higher numbers than we ever thought they would. And I think the advent of telehealth and other mechanisms that have been pushed over the edge with COVID has allowed for this to occur. And thankfully, technology has enabled these discussions. But I would say that hiring during this time frame, we've also found that we've had to look for individuals that are adaptable to this mechanism. We do believe that it's going to be something that's going to be with us for forever. I think we're going to be communicating this way with not only ourselves, but with our clients. And we're training through this mechanism. We're coaching through this mechanism. And it's just been a real a challenge for us to identify people that can do both. And we've met that challenge with adjusting our interview practices, adjusting our coaching streams, and making sure that we're training at every step of the way from both the sender and the receiver.
Excellent. That's a natural lead into my next question is, what do you think that field force of the future is going to look like?
Well, I don't think it's going to be very different. I just think we've been a very linear organization in the past where representatives get hired, they go out in the field and they call on offices on a daily basis. And what this has caused us to look at is that the market is ripe for us to communicate through an electronic mechanism. So I think representatives will have a percentage of their targets that will be in an electronic promotion through a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom or WebEx, whatever else they're using. But they're also going to be in a more structured manner than actually going into the offices, because the offices, I think, are going to be looking at them not hanging out in the waiting room as much, not hanging out in potentially patient rooms or the sample closet. It's going to be a more structured approach, which I think that regimen will help us get to be a more predictable timing with it. But my vision is that representatives will have more targets. They will have a percentage of their time that they'll be communicating with targets virtually. They'll have their HCPs that they've been calling on in an office setting, but they're going to have to be adaptable to the changing market.
And with all of this happening, you mentioned telemedicine. We obviously have seen huge spikes in that uptick. Where do you see that going in the future? Is that with us to stay too?
I think so, and I think from an HCP standpoint, from a pharma standpoint, and from a patient standpoint, it's probably a time that needed to happen, and this was a tipping point moment for it to occur. I know that there are patients that never would have used telehealth that are using it now, physicians that are using telehealth that are using it now, and certainly pharma, which has embraced it with both hands, saying, we have to get involved in this and figure out a way that we can mimic the dynamic that we create in the office with delivering samples or copay cards or patient information and valuable information. How do we enable the physician to not only share patient information, but potentially a link to a copay card or a sample that's sent to a home, which they're able to do now, and then figure out how the physician gets their information in a different medium, as well as nurse practitioners and physician assistants. So I think it's an exciting time for pharma to figure these things out with our patients and with our HCPs, and make sure that we're enabling them in any way that we can. And thankfully, we're of an age where, there's enough bandwidth for these things to happen and for more and more to occur. But it's an exciting time for pharma to figure out how we can find our best place in there without getting in the way of the patient and the physician interaction.
Excellent. Peter, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
For more PharmaVoice 100 content, visit www.pharmavoice100.com.